There comes a moment in a man's life no one warns him about. The moment you look at the world, and suddenly, you see everything. The games, the disrespect, the quiet betrayals, the effort you gave that never came back to you. You didn't quit. You simply stopped lying to yourself. So you stepped back. You went silent. You disappeared from the noise, from the chaos, from the people who never valued your presence. To everyone else, it looked like you gave up. But the truth is different. You weren't collapsing. You were awakening. But listen closely. That silence you're sitting in, is it the stillness of a king or the numbness of a man slowly shutting down? Because there are two kinds of silence in a man's life: the silence of mastery and the silence of escape. They look identical on the outside, but inside, they couldn't be more different. Right now, millions of men are being seduced by a dangerous illusion, one that whispers, isolation is strength. If the world won't treat you fairly, just walk away. But your nervous system knows the truth. What feels like control is often emotional shutdown. What feels like peace might actually be the first stage of self-extinction. And what feels like freedom is sometimes just anesthesia. Here's the hard truth no one tells you. Walking away is easy. Staying gone is even easier. But coming back stronger, that's the real battlefield. And this video is about that return. Not to shame you, not to drag you back into a broken system, but to show you something most men never learn. You can re-enter the chaos, not as prey, not as a people pleaser, but as a man who cannot be broken. And that journey begins at the exact moment you took your first step away. Let's begin with something honest. You didn't opt out because you were weak. You opted out because you finally opened your eyes. Every man who steps away from the world has a moment, the moment when the switch quietly flips. Not a dramatic breakdown, not a Hollywood explosion, just a quiet recognition. The deal they're offering me makes no sense. Maybe your moment happened in traffic on an ordinary Tuesday morning, coffee going cold in the cup holder, on your way to a job where your loyalty buys you nothing but more work and less respect. You looked at the paycheck that disappears the second it lands. You looked at your boss, who wouldn't care if you vanished tomorrow. And something inside you whispered, is this it? Is this what I'm breaking myself for? Or maybe it happened in the dating world, where you played the role you were told to play. The stable man, the good listener, the provider. And what was your reward? Entitlement, games, disrespect wrapped in polished language, a marketplace where your effort meant nothing and your consistency was treated like weakness. You saw the patterns. You saw the double standards. You saw the rigged casino. And something ancient inside you said, if the game is rigged, the only winning move is not to play. So you stepped back, not out of laziness, but out of clarity. You watched men lose half their lives in courtrooms. You watched good men get destroyed by a single accusation. You watched loyal men get replaced the moment they stopped performing. You weren't blind, you were awake. So you withdrew. You built distance. You protected yourself. You stopped approaching love, stopped climbing corporate ladders, stopped proving your worth to people who never cared. You chose dignity over humiliation, safety over chaos, silence over noise. And at first, it felt incredible. The pressure lifted. The world stopped clawing at your attention. Your nervous system finally exhaled. I escaped the matrix, you told yourself. But here's the part most men misunderstand. While you were closing the doors to keep the world out, you also locked something else inside. The friction that sharpens you, the discomfort that grows you, the challenges that turn a man into a weapon. You thought you were protecting your dignity, but slowly, quietly, you began to atrophy. Not because you're broken, but because no pressure is a slow poison. The relief you felt was real, but it wasn't freedom. It was anesthesia. And anesthesia has a time limit. Now let's talk about what happened after you stepped away. Be honest with yourself for a moment. What replaced the struggle? Because when you removed dating, removed ambition, removed responsibility, you didn't replace them with greatness. You didn't become the monk on the mountain. You didn't become the philosopher writing the next great book. You didn't enter some enlightened state of pure discipline. You replaced the struggle with comfort. And comfort feels harmless until it becomes a cage. Not a cage with chains or bars. A soft cage, a quiet cage. A cage so gentle you don't even notice it forming around you. It starts small. You wake up a little later. You scroll a little longer. Your goals shift from today to tomorrow. Your discipline becomes someday. The video games that once helped you unwind, they become your primary source of achievement. You're leveling up an avatar while the real you hasn't leveled up in months. You stop confronting your fears. You stop risking rejection. You stop exposing yourself to friction. And here's the dark truth. A man who avoids friction stops generating energy. Not metaphorically, biologically. Testosterone drops, drive fades, your mind fogs, your spirit dulls. You didn't choose depression, you drifted into it. Not because you're weak, but because the nervous system of a man needs resistance to stay alive. Without resistance, you become numb. Without pressure, you become shapeless. Without challenge, you become invisible. You become the ghost. A man who moves through the day, untouched, unseen, unfelt. He doesn't disturb anything, but nothing stirs inside him either. And deep down, you feel it. That heavy sensation at night, that vague, restless boredom, that sense that life is happening somewhere far away, and somehow you got stuck in spectator mode. This is not laziness. It is not a character flaw. It is the inevitable result of trading the battlefield for a padded room. Comfort can protect you. It can soothe you, but it cannot grow you. Because here is the truth men rarely admit. You didn't just avoid danger. You avoided aliveness. The same fire that can burn you is the fire that forges you. And the longer you stay in the warm, safe bubble you built, the more it starts to feel like a hospice room. Not a home, not a kingdom, a place where potential slowly dies in silence. You feel it, don't you? That ache in the soul, that restlessness scratching at the walls of your comfort, begging to be let out. It's not a problem, it's a signal. A signal that the man inside you is still alive. And he's tired of being locked in a cage made of softness. There's a mistake almost every man makes when he withdraws. He confuses feeling safe with being strong. They are not the same. In fact, they are often opposites. Let me make this simple. A man without stress doesn't become peaceful. He becomes brittle, like a tree grown in a greenhouse. Perfect leaves, perfect color, perfect shape, but shallow roots. It looks healthy. It looks controlled. It looks calm until you take it outside, into the real world, into the wind. The first strong gust snaps it in half, not because the wind was too strong, but because the tree was never tested. That is what happens to a man who isolates himself for too long. Your room feels peaceful, yes, but it's an artificial peace, a controlled climate, no rejection, no unpredictability, no responsibility, no force pressing against you. At first, it feels like mastery, but slowly, silently, your tolerance for chaos drops to zero. A rude cashier feels like an attack. An unexpected email feels like a crisis. A woman's neutral expression feels like judgment. Any friction feels like danger. Your nervous system stops adapting because there's nothing to adapt to. This is brittle calm, a calm that shatters the moment life stops cooperating with you. But there is another kind of man, a different kind of calm, the warrior. His calm doesn't come from hiding, it comes from exposure. He has been pushed, tested, underestimated, rejected, hit, and instead of breaking, he thickened. This is what the ancient Stoics understood, what fighters understand, what every great man in history understood. Pressure doesn't weaken a man. Pressure reveals him. Then pressure rebuilds him. The warrior is not calm because life stopped hurting him. He's calm because nothing life does can remove his center. He is anti-fragile. Chaos strengthens him. Resistance sharpens him. Uncertainty focuses him. The wind that extinguishes a candle is the same wind that feeds a fire. And you are not meant to be the candle. You are meant to be the fire. A man is designed biologically, psychologically, spiritually to take hits, adjust, improve, and come back sharper. So when you opt out, you think you're punishing society by withholding your participation. But the harsh truth is this: you're starving yourself of the forces that make you powerful. The ghost hides in the cave because he fears the storm. The warrior steps into the storm because he knows the storm is where I remember who I am. Strength is not the absence of conflict. Strength is the ability to stand in conflict and remain unshaken inside. This is the shift you must make now. Not going back to being used, not going back to being naive, but transforming from the man who hides into the man who no longer needs to. So now the question becomes, if withdrawing makes you brittle and total submission makes you resentful, what does a man do? How does he walk back into a world that is chaotic, unfair, competitive, predatory, without being swallowed by it? The answer isn't dramatic. It isn't poetic. It's strategic, selective engagement, not total withdrawal, not total immersion. Engagement with precision, presence with boundaries, participation without attachment. This is how the ancient Stoics survived Rome, how warriors operated behind enemy lines, how men of power moved through cities without being owned by them. They were in the world, but not of the world. They acted, but never depended. They engaged, but never clung. They moved like men on a mission, not boys hoping to be liked. And in the modern world, there are two arenas where men bleed the most: work and relationships. Let's start with work. You were raised to believe loyalty matters, that effort is rewarded, that consistency earns respect. But workplaces today aren't tribes. They aren't families. They are systems, and systems do not love you. They use you, then replace you. Not because you're weak, but because turnover is cheaper than loyalty. The awakened man doesn't take this personally. He takes it strategically. You're not there for validation. You're not there for belonging. You're not there to be the good soldier. You're there to trade competence for resources, nothing more. So you perform with excellence, not because you crave praise, but because excellence is your code. You take the money. You build your own kingdom. You stay emotionally detached from the drama. You walk in like a professional, and you walk out like a ghost. You are no longer a servant. You are a contractor of your own destiny. And then, there is the second arena, relationships. This is where the old you broke the hardest, because you approached women like a man trying to qualify, trying to be chosen, trying to be good enough. But the awakened man doesn't audition. He observes, he evaluates, he reads her patterns, her values, her energy. He doesn't chase potential. He doesn't try to convince anyone. If the dynamic is chaotic or disrespectful, he simply steps back. Not angry, not wounded, just uninterested. Because withdrawal is a language too, a language only self-respecting men can speak. And here's the irony. The moment you stop needing anyone, your presence becomes magnetic. People feel it. Women feel it. The world feels it. Strength radiates from the man who can walk away at any moment, not out of fear, but out of clarity. This is the shift. The ghost hides because the world feels too strong. The warrior engages because he knows the world is not stronger than him. He enters the arena, but he never lets the arena enter him. And that is the key to re-entering life without losing yourself. When a man practices selective engagement long enough, something begins to shift inside him. Not loudly, not suddenly, quietly, like embers waking under old ashes. Your shoulders stop collapsing inward. Your breath deepens. Your eyes sharpen, not with aggression, but with awareness. People around you notice it first, a different weight in your presence, a groundedness, a steadiness, a kind of inner gravity. It isn't confidence. Confidence needs performance. This is something older. It's presence. You stop moving like a man waiting for the world's approval. You start moving like a man who carries his own atmosphere with him. This is what happens when the inner structure becomes stronger than the outer noise. Because here's the truth. Monk mode was never the transformation. It was the recovery room, a necessary retreat, a place to stop the bleeding, a place to gather the fragments of yourself after years of overstimulation, chaos, and self-neglect. But a man cannot live in recovery forever. A man cannot stay in the medical tent. A man cannot build a legacy from inside a sanctuary designed only for healing. A life without battles becomes a life without edges, and a life without edges becomes a life without identity. So the solution isn't to build higher walls, it's to build a stronger fire. A fire that stays lit no matter where you stand. A fire that does not shrink when the world grows loud. A fire that cannot be blown out by rejection, conflict, disrespect, or unpredictability. And this fire is not motivation. Motivation fades. Discipline wavers. This fire is clarity, a code, a center, a root system deep enough to hold you upright even in the storm. When a man has that fire under the skin, he can walk into a corporate meeting without being drained by its absurdity. He can navigate Dayton without collapsing into approval seeking. He can face conflict without losing the ground beneath his feet. He can say no without his voice shaking. This is what true strength feels like, being in the chaos without letting the chaos inside you. Modern society teaches that safety comes from isolation. It doesn't. Safety comes from knowing who you are when everything around you becomes noise. The game is not rigged against you. The game is simply nature, chaotic, unpredictable, indifferent. But nature is also the only arena capable of forging mastery. A man becomes powerful not by escaping nature, but by aligning with it. Your task now is not to build escape routes, but to become the kind of man who doesn't need escape routes anymore. Stop fortifying your walls. Fortify your core. That is where the awakened man lives, in the center of the world, not fleeing from it, not submitting to it, but standing inside it, calm, grounded, immovable. A storm walking in human form. You began this journey exhausted, foggy, quietly ashamed of a life that felt heavier than it should. You thought you had a motivation problem. You thought you lacked discipline. You thought something was wrong with you. But now you know the truth. Nothing was wrong with you. Everything was wrong around you. You weren't weak. You were leaking. You weren't unmotivated. You were overstimulated. You weren't broken. You were buried under noise that was never meant for the human mind. And now, after 60 days of silence, alignment, and ruthless rebuilding, you feel something you haven't felt in years. Yourself. Not the scattered version. Not the numb version. Not the version living on autopilot, but the man underneath all of that. The man you were before life overloaded your circuitry. The noise is still out there. The chaos is still out there. The world is still hungry for your attention, and it will try to reclaim it. But for the first time, you can hear the quiet voice beneath all that noise. The one that says, stay awake, stay sharp, stay sovereign. From here forward, your life splits in two. Path 1. Close this tab. Fall back into the spiral. Let the world swallow your focus again. Let the leaks reopen. Let your potential fade quietly into distraction. Path 2. Step across the threshold. Guard your attention like it's sacred, because it is. Carry the silence with you. Move through the world like a man who knows his value. Become someone whose presence bends reality. If this message hit you somewhere you've been avoiding, it's because it was meant for you. So do one thing. Breathe. Slow. Deep. Present. Then tap. Like, not for me, but to push depth into an algorithm drowning in noise. Tap subscribe if you're ready to join the brotherhood. Men who are rebuilding themselves from the inside out. Men who refuse to die unfocused. Men who choose creation over consumption. Now choose your next step, your next evolution. The 4-hour myth, or dopamine detox, level 2. I'll meet you inside. The silence is waiting.